Welcome back to Relationship Goals. It's a very special final edition of Relationship Goals where we have all 5 couples together in the same room. They're going to be answering questions they have never seen before, so anything could happen. So pop some popcorn, lean in, and we hope you are inspired as these couples talk about every topic under the sun and ultimately what it means to honor the covenant of marriage. So let's join them now.
Welcome out to our last session of Relationship Goals. Woo! We are so excited that you're joining us. We sat down, we thought it was going to be a lot of fun for us to go through and answer lots of questions that have to do with life, marriage, relationships, but we put a little twist on it, and the questions we actually have not seen. We've got them in this envelope here. So without further ado, is everybody ready? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Question 1. Who got into an argument on the way here this morning? Let's go ahead and just skip this question here. Is that okay with you guys good for that?
Well, Courtney was leaving before me. She was leaving like 25 minutes before she needed to leave. 20 minutes before she was leaving. I said, "What are you doing?" I just got back from running. I go, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "I'm leaving." I'm going, "You going to get a taco or something?" She said, "No." And I said, "You're just being Courtney."
There we go.
So,
wait.
and,
So nobody
wait,
thought
wait,
about
wait,
it.
wait, wait.
avoided
Let
an
me ask
argument.
a question though, David. When did Courtney find out that she was doing this?
I'm not sure. She sent me the stuff, so.
Didn't she find out last night?
Is that right?
Yes.
Did you find out last night that you were doing this?
I told her that
David.
I gave her the Wednesdays we were supposed to do it on, but you said you could do it any Wednesday, and then we did the other thing.
Well, I didn't know it.
Wait, what other thing?
I didn't know
did
it
y'all
was
do?
any Wednesday from here on out. I didn't know it was any Wednesday. I thought there was a time limit, like this Wednesday or next Wednesday.
There you go.
All right, so everybody raise your hand if you think Courtney was wrong. Raise your hand if you think David was wrong.
Wait.
At fault.
David, I'm going David.
Okay, let's take a little serious turn here. What is the biggest thing you think that the world gets wrong about marriage? What is the biggest thing the world gets wrong about marriage?
Well, I can speak to this one. I think that the number one thing I hear is people saying, "I deserve to be happy," and that they think that the primary end goal of marriage is happiness. I think you could argue that the primary goal is reproduction, biblically. You could also argue that the primary goal is...
I would argue that.
You could argue that it's holiness, your sanctification. You could also argue it is a picture of Christ's love for the church. So I think you can argue all those things, but to argue that the marriage is primarily for your happiness, I think that's the biggest thing to me.
That's good.
Yeah, I would say just the temporary kind of mindset towards marriage would be the biggest thing that the world gets wrong. I don't disagree with David on this, but I would say you see a lot of people that just go into marriage thinking, we'll just see how this works out. And that would be...
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that it's kind of a commitment, but
Right.
if I don't necessarily like it, I don't have to stay.
Right.
And I think a lot of people they go into it with that mindset like, nah, I love you right now,
Right.
but I don't
right.
know that I'm really going to love you forever.
Of all the possible poetic comparisons, why do you think God calls the church the bride of Christ? Why does he use the marriage imagery? That's a good question.
Here, Randy.
Well, so this is, I'm just shooting from the hip. I don't honestly know, but I've gotten to where I love to watch the groom. I know everybody says all the eyes are on the bride, but I like to watch the groom. And whenever you see a groom see his bride for the first time, all decked out, the expression on the groom's face so often, I think, paints a picture of the way Christ loves us, and the way Christ sees us. Mm-hmm. And so I think that probably has something to do with it. So next time you're at a wedding and everybody's looking at the bride, take a peek at the groom.
Yeah, right.
And I think for me, that kind of clarifies why maybe that's the imagery.
That's good.
Well, I think there's so much about the marriage covenant that is an illustration of our relationship with God. That's meant to be.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that it is supposed to be a covenant that is not broken, the faithfulness that's supposed to be a part of that covenant. You know, all of that plays into the imagery there, I think, as well.
Yeah.
And a lot of it has to do with union. I mean, you see that kind of theme throughout the entire Bible, both Old Testament and New Testament. And there's a union that we have with Christ that the closest thing we can have in a human relationship is supposed to be in marriage. And so I think that's when he speaks of the church, he's not talking about a local institution. He's talking about those that have been birthed into the family of God. And birth is also a union. You are connected to that person. That DNA is permanent. So.
Yeah, I love what you said there, just about union. When I think about the way that marriage operates, it is supposed to be a forever thing. And when I love that we use this image, the bride of Christ, and it just makes me think this was a choice that God had made, and he chose us for forever, and a covenant promise. I think it's beautiful. Money is cited as one of the top reasons couples get divorced. How should couples navigate finances together? My advice is do not live anywhere close to a Target. Just stay away.
You know, I think, for us, Jill is very, Jill's never been materialistic. She doesn't, it's not like she wants to spend a lot of money. And so I've kind of always just been like, hey, you spend what you want to. but that's been easy with her because she's very conscious of that.
That's good.
I think obviously for some couples it's way harder than for others. If you have two spenders or if you do have someone that spends money. For Casey and I, a big help in our finances was just figuring out who can manage the finances without feeling anxious. And so he used to manage them, and it was stressful, and we had a lot of more conflict about it. And so I started doing them just because it doesn't bother me as much.
Yeah.
And also, you would think that the person who cares about it more would do a better job at it. I actually think it gives the person who doesn't care about it as much the ownership, and therefore they budget themselves. They budget themselves.
I think that's been true for us for sure. I stress like crazy about money and where the finances are going, and the in and out of things. And the moments when we have really shared the knowledge of who's spending what's happening, the budget was an us thing and not just Jeremy's going to be thinking on this. I think those are moments for us when we were doing our best financially and just in the management department. We were doing that together. It wasn't just something that me or Megan was thinking about solely.
Yeah, I think so. Money management is a thing, and so we just have a system. There's certain things I feel better at, doesn't cause me any stress. There's things that she's better at that would cause me stress, so she takes care of it. But I think if you a little more vision behind it is what's your end game. And so there's a lot of biblical principles about stewardship, and obviously we need to live up to those and abide by those. But I think not to over spiritualize, but if you fixate too much on money, it can become one of those things that causes envy, comparison, and can create all kinds of other issues. So, like God's taking care of us. There's a couple of things we've joked about already today, like me being fashionable. I'm a Tanger outlet kind of guy. What can I say? I just don't even care. Doesn't matter. Pretty comfortable in my own skin. So whatever on that. And as far as money, we joked about how we started out poor, like legit not having a whole lot of extra. But I think that really set a good tone for us, because whenever we think about our kids and we get to the end of our life, again, not to over spiritualize, but we really kind of want to get to the finish line contented and godly. And we want our kids to be contented, and we want them to be godly. And you don't have to have money to be either of those things. That's good. And so if they have money, great. If we leave them something, great. If we die broke, great, doesn't matter, contented and godly. And so I think if every couple will kind of get the end in mind and say, what are we really shooting for? Where are we really headed? It might help money and material things become less of a polarizing issue that can create conflict or whatever, because it just becomes a resource. It's a tool to use for any number of things. So,
okay. How does Jesus' love inspire you to love your spouse better? Think on that for a second. How does Jesus' love inspire you to love your spouse better?
This one does actually get me quite frequently. Probably because we do have a lot of conflict or had in the past. One day we were driving down 30. Do you remember exactly what I was going to say? And I don't know. I think we were coming back from a date night and we were arguing and I was mad at him. We were quiet in the car. Long ride home to Rockwall. And there's a big billboard for Easter for Lake Point on the way home. And I just start crying. Casey's like, what is wrong with you now? And I'm like, I was just thinking about Easter and how Jesus died on the cross and I have to forgive you and ask for your forgiveness and all from a billboard. So I truly feel like I'm just big on Jesus forgave me for so much. I just can't. When I think about that, when I allow myself to think about it, there's days where I choose not to so that I can be mad longer. But it just pushes me towards asking for forgiveness and forgiveness every time.
Yeah. I just I have this thought all the time. What do couples do without Jesus?
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe the rest of y'all can make it without him. But for Lauren and I just think all the time, man, if we didn't have Jesus, good Lord, where would we be?
For people who are busy and have kids, how can you keep the romance alive? How you keep it spicy? How you keep things going when you're busy?
I think for us, we've always had busy lives. Jill has a career. We've got 4 kids. It's always there's always been a lot of stuff going on around our family. But we've tried to make it a priority through the years that, hey, we do stuff with just us. We typically every year we have some kind of little trip that we'll take.
Just a
for
getaway,
2 or 3 days.
you two.
Yeah, that just are the two of us. When we go to, we go on dates. We try to do something almost every week. We have some kind of date that we go on. And when our kids say, especially our youngest, she'll say, well, how come I can't go? And I'll say, because I like mom the most. And
I like her way better than you.
I think we've just tried to always say that we're for each other first. We love our kids. We support our kids, but when we go to eat, I've just always made it a deal that we sit by each other. Everybody else, we're not. It's not like the kids come in and nope. Sometimes it happens, and I'll be like, nope, move over. That's my seat. I'm sitting by mom. Just and really, it's just a way of saying she's first. And our kids, I love our kids and they matter to us a lot, but we've always felt like we have to demonstrate that we're putting each other first.
Yeah.
And that's just a simple way to do it.
Yeah.
Make a budget, have a plan. No, no. I think our kids are more intuitive than we give them credit for, and I think that a passionate marriage is a wonderful gift to give to your children. And obviously, that doesn't mean you have to talk about it with your children. They just pick up on it. There's something they're like, I think those two like each other.
Yeah, sure.
And so I'd say that.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Well, I'm not saying, you need to be in the kitchen getting fresh in front of your kids. You know what I'm saying? But I do think, David, you're exactly right. For us, we've said it a lot, is this is a gift we want to give our kids, that they'll have an idea of what this looks like someday when they go to look for a spouse, that we keep things really regular as far as date nights, loving one another. I'd say, we're not perfect about going out as regularly as we'd probably like, but especially in this season, I feel like we've been the most intentional about it, and we've seen probably, I think we've probably grown closer during this time than ever, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also healthy for your kids to see it, because then when they enter marriage, you don't want them to put their kids first either, because if they see that as they get older, that's what they'll just naturally do. And I want them to see him put me first and vice versa, because I want their marriage to be forever too. So.
Yeah.
It could be also that you're not you, but some people are too busy, and you can't expect that your kids would get the right impression about your marriage if you're letting them be involved in literally everything that is offered to them. So I do think that there are boundaries that will protect your marriage if you establish proper boundaries of how many things your kids can be involved in, so that even if you're not, replicating everybody else's idea of date nights and whatever else, you're home, you're together, you're able to be present with each other, and so if somebody's like, well, we're just in this season, we just have these kids, and well, they don't have to all be involved in 6 things each, and don't be surprised when your marriage is anemic. Look at your schedule. If your marriage is super anemic, look at your schedule. There's a good chance that the reason it's anemic is because all of your energy is being invested in other places where you're never together because you're always carting kids around all over the place.
What are some final relationship goals every couple should have?
Every couple should glorify God in their relationship, and they should recognize the importance of their sanctification process through their marriage.
It's good. It's real good.
Yeah, I say it at every wedding, and it's just a different way of saying what David just said. But if you think that you got into marriage because you found the right person, it's going to be a lot harder to make it to the finish line. But if you daily work to become the right person in Christ, individually, there's nothing more attractive or compelling, energizing to our relationship than whenever I see her becoming more like Christ and spending time in the Word and knowing that she prays for me and all those sorts of things. And so her becoming more like Christ really edifies our relationship. And I think the same is true whenever she senses that from me. So so many people think that success in marriage is finding the right person. It's not at all.
So I would say serving each other,
Yes.
finding something that the other person likes and participating in that, encouraging them in that, make that a priority as well.
That's good.
I agree with Randy. If you yourself aren't where you should be personally, how are you going to uplift your spouse? And so when that's said and done, I think I call us battle buddies because that's what life is. It's a constant battle, and we have to choose each other daily. And so the hard moments, the hard times, when he's down, and if I feel like I'm where I should be able to be his life partner and to walk alongside him, uplift him, encourage him. Even when it's really hard, there was a moment in our marriage where he came to me and was like, I just don't know if I believe anymore. This was years and years ago. And it was wedging itself between us. And I told him one day, he came home from work, and I said, me and the kids are packing up. We're walking away because you need some time alone with God to feel it's just you and him. And you need to get right with God before we can make this continue and to be strong. So definitely a battle buddy and a forever.
Yeah, that's good.
When I think of particularly Christian couples, I would like to be able to portray to our friends and family, our kids, way in the future that we still like each other, that we didn't just stay married, but that we were able to grow closer together because we worked really hard at it. And I think, obviously every couple needs to work really hard at it, but I just feel like as Christians, that's my ultimate goal, is to be able to show other people that how Christian marriage is different than everybody else's marriage.
And I think this is more lighthearted, but you have to be able to have fun together. Because if you don't enjoy being together, just being goofy, having fun, just laughing together, it's kind of what you're saying. You have to enjoy each other's company. And part of it's spending time together.
That's good. Yeah, I would just add all these, you guys took several of my answers along the way. I would also add that if I was talking to a couple newly married or been married for years and years and years, I would say your standard is your spouse. That should be a goal. Your standard for beauty, your standard for fun, personality, that's your person. That's the measuring stick. Not what you've seen on Facebook, not who you've seen, this couple's doing this or that. Your standard is your spouse.
I think also just figuring out how to honor your spouse, like to really honor your spouse. I think in front of other people, to them, and I think we always, I think at times we've fallen short of that for sure. I know I have, but to recognize the incredible gift that you have when you're married, that it really is a gift from God. And so for me, and people say this to men all the time, they'll say, man, you out-kicked your coverage, or nobody ever says that to women, but people say, man, you married way over your head. And I'm like, I know, I am completely aware of that. But I want to honor Jill. I mean, she's worthy of honor. She's lived in her life in a way that's so respectable, and I want her to know that I honor her, that I see her as a precious gift. And I don't always show that well, but that's important to me.
That's good. Well, we hope that this was a helpful time for you guys in your group discussion. We've had a blast up here together. We hope, again, that this has spurred some discussion along, maybe made you laugh along the way. And we are just praying that this would be something that helps you along here as you discover relationship goals in your marriage and your relationships along the way.
Well, thanks for joining us for our journey through relationship goals. We hope this series has been uplifting and challenging, and that you and your group have learned some new truths straight from God. So as always, look in the description, find that link to the discussion guide questions, and continue the conversation with your groups. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.